Good morning. I am the older kid of two children. My sister Ingrid is 4 years younger than me. She's a family physician. She's smart and beautiful and uber responsible. In fact, you know all those memes that talk about the fact that like older kids are uber responsible and younger ones are the flighty ones. I feel like a little bit like we got switched at birth because she's definitely the older kid in our relationship. So much so, let me just tell you that growing up, it got in my way numerous times, like my inability to be the ultimate uber responsible kid. For instance, I had to babysit my sister quite a bit. And on one occasion, we were making popcorn, and this is like the 70s, right? So you remember those popcorn poppers where you had to put oil in the bottom and then they popped and stuff. And we're looking in the cupboards and I can't find any oil. So I pull out some like corn syrup. I'm like, this'll work. And my sister's like, no, that is not going to work. And I'm like, yes, it will. Just watch. No, it's not going to work. Yes, it will. No, it won't. Yes, it will. Well, I did it anyway. And of course, soon after it's turned on, right, there's this smoke coming from it and it's burning this corn syrup all over the place. And I ruined the entire thing and I didn't make any money babysitting because I had to buy a new corn popper thing. Another time we're babysitting, I'm babysitting and I'm cleaning up and we're loading the dishwasher. Now, again, this is the 70s and we have a kitchen that has carpet in it, which I don't know whoever came up with that idea, but it's not the best idea to have in the kitchen. But of course we had carpet in the kitchen and we're loading the dishwasher. We're out of dishwasher, liquid. And I'm saying, oh, well, we could just use the dish detergent, right? That you wash dishes with in a sink. And my sister's like, that's not going to work. And I'm like, it's going to work. What's wrong with you? She's like, it's not going to work. It is going to work. It's not going to work. It is going to work. Well, I put it in, turn it on. And there are bubbles like coming out of the side of the dishwasher all over the floor of the kitchen and the vents on the top of the dishwasher and all the water, like you couldn't stop it. It's filled with water. And it was a complete mess. I had to try and stop it, but then all the water came out and we spent a good, I don't know, 40 minutes trying to clean it up, used about 30 towels. And by that time, my sister's looking at me and saying, you can take care of this. So I did. I don't even really remember getting in trouble for that one, just had disappointed parents, I'm positive. The reason I tell you that, because I think my sister will tell you that, yes, at times I can be irresponsible and not really think through all things. And I never follow directions. But she loves me for the fullness of who I am. And I think actually that's one of the reasons that we come to church. We come because we are loved in these communities that we gather in for the fullness of who we are. So remember that, friends. You are loved for the fullness of who you are. Welcome to our celebration of life. It's really a true gift to be with you guys this morning. It wasn't the Christmas that we had planned for. See, a number of years ago, my parents asked my sister and I to come over and, like fill out all this paperwork for them. It was things like DNR directives and medical proxies. And we were sitting around a game table and we were kind of laughing and chatting and signing all this stuff. And right when we're done, my dad says, do you mind pulling up that test results I had. He hadn't been feeling well for a while, and a couple days beforehand, he had had a CAT scan. And as I said, my sister's a family physician, so she had access to his medical records. And she opens up her laptop, she pulls it up, and she looks at it for a long time, and she starts crying. Now, I had never seen her do anything like that ever, because she's very professional in what she does. And I knew something was really bad. And she looks at Dad and she says, it looks like you have stage 4 lung cancer, Dad. I'm so sorry. And then I remember all the laughter stopping. She put down her, the top of her laptop, and everything felt like it was falling apart. Turns out my dad did indeed have stage 4 lung cancer. It was a palliative diagnosis. And one of the first visits that we had with the oncologist, he's asking, the oncologist is going on about upcoming treatment and all these things. And then my dad finally says at one point, he goes, that's all well and good, but when am I going to stop obsessing about death? He goes, it's like taking up 80% of my brain all the time, and I can't get out of it. Now I want you to fast forward from that piece of time, which was right before Christmas, to the spring that followed. And I had gone with Dad to a chemotherapy kind of session, and we get there and they said, we actually want you to go to Highland Hospital and show up for radiation. You need to have your arm taken care of. And so we drive to Highland. We sit in this basement waiting room, and like now I understand why you're in a basement with radiation, but at the time I really was like, I can't believe they put people in rooms like this at the end of their days. Like, it's depressing. There's crap TV going on. My dad and I had a conversation for a little bit. I was telling him about my kids, but then we were just quiet with each other. And finally, after waiting for an hour and a half, they come out and they're like, you know what? We're not going to get you in until after lunch. So why don't you go to the cafeteria and get some food? So we go to the cafeteria and we get there and we're sitting down together and starting to eat. And I had brought along some reading material, like some stuff for sermons, and Dad had some like maudlin magazine he was reading. And I had brought along a book by David Sedaris. Now, if you don't know David Sedaris, he's a fabulous humorist. He's quite irreverent sometimes. But I started reading out loud to my dad in the cafeteria this essay that he calls Jesus Shaves. And I got myself tucked into his ear, so it wasn't bothering anyway. Now, Sedaris in this essay is recalling the story of taking French in Paris after he had moved there. And mostly it was other Europeans who were in this class with him. And his teacher, of course, is French. And this is like the second month he's in this French class. And this is some of what I read to my dad. We finished discussing Bastille Day, and the teacher moved on to Easter, which was represented in our textbook by a black and white photograph of a chocolate bell lying on a bed of palm fronds. And what does one do on Easter? Would anyone like to tell us? The teacher asked. The Italian nanny was attempting to answer the question when the Moroccan student interrupted, shouting, "Excuse me, but what's an Easter?" Despite her growing up in a Muslim country, it seemed she might have heard it mentioned once or twice, but no. I mean it, she said. I have no idea what you people are talking about. And the teacher then called upon the rest of us to explain. Now, the Poles led the charge to the best of their ability. It is, said one, a party for the little boy of God who call himself Jesus. And, oh, shit. She faltered, and our fellow countryman came to her aid. He call himself Jesus, and then he be die one day on 2 morsels of lumber. The rest of the class jumped in, offering bits of information that would have given the Pope an aneurysm. He die one day, and then he go above my head to live with your father. He weared the long hair, and after he died, the first day he came back for her to say hello to the peoples. He nice, the Jesus. He make the good things, and on Easter we be sad because somebody makes him dead today. Part of the problem had to do with grammar. Simple nouns such as cross and resurrection were beyond our grasp, let alone such complicated reflexive phrases such as to give of yourself your only begotten son. Faced with the challenge of explaining the cornerstone of Christianity, we did what any self-respecting group of people might do. We talked about food. Easter is a party for to eat of the lamb, the Italian nanny explained. One too may eat of the chocolate. And who brings the chocolate? The teacher asked. I knew the word, so I raised my hand, saying, the rabbit of Easter, he bring of the chocolate. My classmates reacted as though I'd attributed the delivery to the Antichrist. They were mortified. A rabbit? The teacher, assuming I'd used the wrong word, positioned her index fingers above her head and wiggled them as though they were ears. You mean one of these? A rabbit? Rabbit? Well, sure, I said. He come in the night when one sleep on a bed. With a hand he have the basket and foods. The teacher sadly shook her head as if this explained everything that was wrong with my country. No, no, no. Here in France, the chocolate is brought by the big bell that flies in from Rome. I called for a timeout. But how did the bell know where you live? Well, she said, how does a rabbit? Okay, it was a decent point, but at least a rabbit has eyes. That's a start. Rabbits move from place to place, while most bells can only go back and forth, and they can't even do that on their own. On top of that, the Easter Bunny has character. He's someone you'd like to meet and shake hands with. A bell has all the personality of a cast iron skillet. It's like saying that come Christmas, a magic dustpan flies in from the North Pole, led by 8 flying cinder blocks. Who wants to stay up all night so they can see a bell? And why fly in from Rome? There's got to be more bells than they know what to do with right here in Paris. That's the most implausible part of the whole story, that there's no way the bells of France would allow a foreign worker to fly in and take their jobs. That Roman bell would be lucky to get work cleaning up after a French bell's dog, and even then he'd need papers. It just didn't add up. Then Sedaris sums up this entire encounter with this. In communicating any religious belief, the operative word is faith, a concept illustrated by our very presence in the classroom. Why bother struggling with the grammar lessons of a 6-year-old if each of us didn't believe that against all reason, we might eventually improve? If I could hope to one day carry on a fluent conversation, it was a relatively short leap to believing that a rabbit might visit my home in the middle of the night, leaving behind a handful of chocolate kisses and a carton of menthol cigarettes. So why stop there? If I could believe in myself, why not give other improbabilities the benefit of the doubt? I accepted the idea that an omniscient God had cast me in his own image and that he watched over me and guided me from one place to the next. The virgin birth, the resurrection, and the countless miracles, my heart expanded to encompass all the wonders and possibilities of the universe. A bell, though, that's effed up. And there it was. My dad and I were laughing so hard. I had tears coming down my, cheeks, and my dad was wiping his nose because his nose was running. There was no pretension of control on either of our parts. We had lost where we were, what we were doing, what our purpose for the day was. We were indeed helpless with laughter for just a little while. That laughter was a great gift, like grace, a gift undeserved, unexpected, unearned. It makes me think of something one of my Christian colleagues has said. Laughter had shown itself to be a sign of spiritual surrender. So why do I share that with you? Well, because we are easing up on Easter soon, right? And Good Friday coming up is less than like a week away, which is considered the day to commemorate Jesus's death and being set in the tomb. I should say it's actually about 2 weeks away, but it's coming up. So much of this conversation has to do with what happens to us in the tomb, because the tomb, it seems to me, is relative to all of us. My dad's worry, actually, that this is all he can see in life is pretty common, it seems to me, for all of us. Being in the tomb doesn't mean there is an absence of life, but the dominance of death. Being in the tomb is the question of, is this all there is? Being in the tomb means that when we let an experience, a condition, a worry dominate everything, we let it eclipse the good. I see the tomb present all the time in many parishioners' lives and in my own. The longing to be partnered and have children as a still single 35-year-old can consume us, suck all of the air out of the room. And we are obsessed. All other lights are shut out. We are, in other words, entombed. The professional career whose unsteady journey forward depends on that one grant coming through, or the tenuous company now under new management, or the cheap labor in India that is kind of slipping into our industry, all of which allows us to obsess, dominate our days with worry about our present and about our future. And we are entombed. The phone call from an ex-spouse, cranky coworker, or obsessive relative, and their ability to hook you, to hold you, to keep you in a dark place long after you've hung up the phone, and suddenly we are entombed. The new college graduate ready to take on the world, yet applications for that same job mount into the hundreds, and one's future feels narrow and constrained, and we are entombed. This entombing of ourselves happens so often, it's like we forget we even do it. We let whatever the worry, concern, or burden is eclipse the rest of our life. We often let it define our days, who we are, and how we get stuck, most often because we want the answers. We want control. And when we feel so stuck, so eclipsed, when we are not letting in any light, I think this gift of laughter is honestly one of the few ways there are really to roll away the stone. Gene Austen, that great American author and spiritual leader, once said, "At the height of laughter, the universe is flung into a kaleidoscope of new possibilities." And in the tomb, friends, we need new possibilities. John Lloyd is an author who strikes me as offering just such an opportunity. He points out actually that in the Bible, the book of John starts with, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." Word in this context is translated from the Greek logos, traditionally defined as word or thought. However, Lloyd points out that in Latin, logos can also be defined as joke. this definitely puts a different spin on the gospel, right? In the beginning was the joke, and the joke was with God, and the joke was God. You see, his translation offers a new paradigm. As Reverend Susan Sparks comments, in this twist of translation, Lloyd offers a recognition that perhaps in life there are no answers, that creation is beyond explanation and control. So we can laugh and let go. And in this place where we are released, all becomes possible. I know that for myself on that day, after that big belly laugh with my dad, I saw new life all around me. I let in new light. I noticed the kindness of the staff, how in truth I was just having a good day with my dad. Like I enjoyed his company and he enjoyed mine. It wasn't about the treatment and the waiting and the obsessing. The day opened up and wasn't dominated by illness, by loss, by sickness, all of which I had access to before. It's just that I couldn't see it. And for me, laughter is not a break from whatever dominates your thought, but it widens your sight of which I didn't have access to until my father and I laughed hard. Penn and Teller, the magicians many of us know so well, once explained the trick behind that shell game. You know, where they have like 3 cups or 3 shells and they're moving everything around and there's a ball underneath it usually, and you're trying to figure out like where the ball is, right? So they're going through this whole thing, they're moving it all around, and right before they ask you, where do you think it is? Every magician knows that before you do that, you got to tell someone a joke or something funny. Like, for instance, something like this. So Lars, his wife dies, and he calls up the funeral home and he goes, yeah, this is Lars Larson and my wife's died. And the woman at the funeral home goes, oh, Lars, I'm so sorry to hear that. I tell you what, tell me where you live and we'll come pick her up. And Lars goes, yeah, I live at 19 Eucalyptus. And the woman on the phone goes, well, could you spell eucalyptus for me there, Lars? And Lars thinks for a moment. And then he says, well, I tell you what, I'll drag her over to Oak Street. You can pick her up over there. So why tell a joke before picking up the cup? Why? Because as scientists tell us, which Penn and Teller know about, laughter works in your brain by short-circuiting your ability to focus. It's like a reset button. So after the joke, people's brains were reset and they couldn't process or hold on to their memory of where the ball was. But we can easily apply the same principle to those moments when you are so obsessed and in the tomb. It's not that the laughter makes you lose focus on the tomb, but instead it gives you focus, it gives you sight. Laughter pulls you out of the muck as it resets your obsession, resets your need for control, resets your focus, resets your inability to let go. Now, we can know this to be true, right? And yet there's still something missing, which leads to this awakening of sorts. The book I chanced upon to read out loud made us laugh. It was a gift. I knew David Sedaris was funny. I brought it on purpose, but I didn't expect or count on the reset button of new sight. New sight, new life came to us that day as a gift. It was luck, actually. The traditional story of Jesus, of resurrection, is told as a gift from God. Resurrection is made possible because of God's grace and power. God grants a gift to Jesus, and we then, according to this theology, are granted a gift ourselves, a resurrection from our own pain and suffering. It is a gift we are to receive for faithfulness and belief. But here's the thing. I'm not actually sure resurrection takes place without work on our part. And it's frustrating to be in the tomb without having a way out, to just wait for grace to descend upon us. I think this version of the resurrection story is similar to that of many fairy tales. And I don't mean any disrespect here, but it has the same logic to it. In this paradigm, resurrection occurs from outside of oneself and one's own free will. I want you to take a standard fairy tale, something like Cinderella, right? After her ball, her big night, she comes home and she passively waits. She never says a word to anyone about what just happened or where she's been or what she knows. Maybe something will happen. Now, I don't know about you, but that girl lives in a tomb. Now, this is the American version, by the way. Turns out that there are about 500 different versions of that story, but they're mostly European and they have a different slant to them. The others, by and large, have an active hero, one who takes initiative and works for her release from bondage. As one author says, she doesn't just sit there. She knows she's got class, and she understands that the relatives that she's living with are dirtbags, and she isn't counting on everybody else to do something about her situation. In all the European versions, Cinderella looks for a way out by being clever and by being true to the good memory of her mother. She goes for the slipper in the end. Here, that's mine. Let me try it on. The passive, helpless, waiting version of Cinderella, it's poison. I was so struck by those words. That passive, helpless, waiting version of Cinderella is poison. It's poison, of course, because there are too many opportunities in our lives to not have new sight. Too many times when we need to let the light in and we have control over that. We have the ability to hit a reset button. And why, friends? Why? If we can let in new life, if we can offer up a spiritual surrender to our days through ways like laughter, why wouldn't we do that? Bennett Goodspeed once said, the difference between a comedy and a tragedy is that in a comedy, the characters figure out reality in time to do something about it. I'm going to say that again. Difference between a comedy and a tragedy is in a comedy, the characters figure out reality in time to do something about it. I love that second awakening. If we want new life, new outlook, new options, new possibilities to how I am framing something, obsessing over something, I'd do well. We'd all do well to make sure that laughter is in the mix. And I do want to be clear here. I'm not just talking about everyday laughter. I'm not recommending when someone is in pain to tell them a good joke. I'm talking about like a deeper laughter, a deeper sense of joy when things are rough. Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Jewish Hasidic movement, noted, humor is the thing that ushers a person's mind from a place of constricted consciousness to a place of expanded, restrictive consciousness to expanded consciousness. That's the kind of awakening that could carry you through the roughest times and awaken you to a larger view and can help walk you out of the tomb. So today, I got to ask you, where do you need a jolt of laughter to offer you new sight? We've all got our own tombs. Those times we let an experience, a condition, or worry eclipse the good. So where do you need a jolt of laughter to offer you new sight? Let that be our joyful work of awakening, laughing, resetting, and expanding our consciousness. May it be so. Amen.